Welcome to the Jeff Knows Inc. Entrepreneurial Show with your host, Jeff Lopes.
We are live on the Jeff Knows Inc. podcast. I'm your host, Jeff Lopes. Super excited to have on today Liz Wilcox. What is happening, Liz?
Just hanging out with my buddy Jeff today. I'm so excited. Thank you for having me. I cannot wait to talk all things email and boy bands and anything else that you want to talk about.
Boy bands. I wasn't going to start with that. Let's just start with that. As soon as we went live, the first thing I saw was an Instinct poster on the side. She spanned to her left, if I got that right, and we got three more of those. When did your love for Instinct start? How did that all happen? And let's talk about everything. let's talk about everything about the 90s, because
let's just get into the juicy bits that everyone cares about, I'm sure. Of course. I was born in 1988. I grew up listening to the Fresh Prince, New Kids on the Block, New Edition, Boys to Men, and then of course Backstreet Boys and NSYNC came out, and you got to pick a side, right? The cafeteria will not have you sitting in the middle. You have to pick a side, and of course I went with my boys NSYNC, and it's just been kind of this love affair ever since. I also wish that they would reunite, but they won't, and that's fine. And so I just my very first business was actually an RV travel site where my ideal avatar was a man in his 60s. So obviously I wasn't talking much about NSYNC or the Fresh Prince, or, I wasn't wearing my backwards cap. And I just felt like, I didn't much belong in that business, right? I built it. I had crazy success there. I even built a second RV travel business. And
let me dive in there. What got you into that business to start with? I mean, there had to be a trigger point or something you saw, or a moment of opportunity. What got you into that business to start with?
Yeah, sure. So see, we can bring it back. We don't have to talk just about boy bands. So I grew up really poor, and I got married. It was a military spouse type of thing. And we were moving from one place to another, and the deal on our house fell through. And my ex-husband now, he said, well, we're moving to Alabama. Why don't we just live in an RV? Everybody lives in a trailer there. Sorry to any Alabama listeners. I love and respect you all. And so we moved into an RV, and, to save money, being a military family, we knew we weren't going to be there forever. And then I started Googling, and I was like, wait, people move these things. You can drive this. And I said, well, I could start a blog. I see all these RV travel blogs. I could do that. I'm smart. I have a master's degree. I can figure it. If these people can figure it out, I surely can. And so I started my business. And that was part of it, listen to podcasts like this, went to, webinars, things like that. And everyone says, nail down your audience. And I said, well, I think men in their 60s have money. So that's going to be my audience. And that's who that's who I'm going to go after. Cause like I said, I grew up poor, being in the military, you don't make a ton of money. Right. And I was a stay-at-home mom at the time. And I said, I'm going to cater to them. And I built this business around, this 60-year-old guy with 2.3 kids, about to retire. His wife was ready to go. But that really wasn't me. And so when I started this new business, I actually sold that RV site and got bought out of my second company. I said, I am just going to be Liz Wilcox. When you see Liz Wilcox on the screen, if you're watching a clip of this, even if you're hearing me, like I am just who I am. And I wanted to build a business where I belonged. And that's what I help people do now too.
I'm going to dive back into that. When you talked about, this is something a lot of companies are diving into. And I think this is something relatively more newer over the last couple of years is building your avatar. When did you really take a grasp of that or understanding of that? And how did you apply that? And what recommendations would you give to other young entrepreneurs that are starting to build a company about building an avatar and audience?
Well, I think there's a lot of emphasis around, who are they? What do they want? Where do they come from? Things like that. But you have to ask yourself that question too. And I think that's the mistake I got into, especially coming from my background, where quite honestly, I was chasing money. I needed that money. I needed that money in order to, for the first time in my life, I saw, an opportunity to make limitless amounts, where in my, I got a master's degree because I didn't want to be a teacher forever. Maybe I could be a principal, and maybe I could make almost six figures. And suddenly I'm seeing, people on Instagram claiming they're making six figures, from their house. And that was really eye-opening. So I did go really hard into, who are they? What do they want? Where are they coming from? Why do they follow you? How can you help them? All those questions. But I never asked myself, like, do I care about these people? Do I actually want to serve them? And so I would invite anyone listening to, answer those questions I just rambled off, but also, like, who do I really care about? And how can I specifically, like, what are my unique perspectives, experiences, in sync obsessions that will attract them as well, right? Does that make sense?
Yeah, 100%. I just wanted to hear your side of it. And when you are putting that, okay, I love that you brought one aspect in there, that it has to be something that you care about and love, because obviously the passion is not there. That original hustle desire will slowly start drifting off. We all know that, right? So you have to have that passion or desire in something that you actually love, or something that you actually have this will to keep building, kind of thing, right? Yeah. When you your second company, so your first was the RV. Were they both RVs? Both the first two companies?
They were both RV related. The first one was a traditional blog, and the second one was a digital summit. That actually, it was just such a big idea, and I was less than a year into my first business that I brought in partners, and we ran that summit from 2017 to 2021, and it was, I think it has a new owner now in 2022.
Explain summit. So you would do events?
Yeah, like an online summit. We called it, Full-Time Freedom Week. How to get on the road full time. And it was just, Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. once an hour. And then I would go live, lunchtime tips with Liz, and then a virtual campfire at the end. And I had so much fun. I'm actually planning on running my own summit this year. But it was a great way to gather community. And also, if you're building a business, a great way to get people gathered together. So kind of like linking arms in order to appear bigger. It was something that a lot of us did at the very beginning of our careers. And people were like, whoa, these people are somebody. Why haven't I ever heard of them? It's like, well, we started 10 months ago. So that's what I mean by that summit. Yeah.
So I'm going to dive back here. There's just all these questions are popping in my head as we're going. So don't mind me, because my interviews are they're just scatterbrained. As I hear things, we just keep going.
It's a constellation, Jeff. It's a constellation of curiosity. Write that down. Somebody write that down. Send it to us.
When I hear a blog, and obviously blogs have kind of taken a slow step back. I don't hear the popularity of them as much now, and there are still very, very successful blogs, but now podcasts, there's different forms of media that have taken kind of a higher presence. When you look at a blog, I would never think of somebody selling their blog. So for you to build a company as a blog and sell it, talk me through that whole process. And how did you build it? Was it, and I'm just going to assume it was the value of your email list or whether values of it, but how did you build it up to sell a blog? Go through that process for anybody out there that has a blog.
Yeah, I'm so excited about this question because I did it very much on purpose. Like, I might seem like, oh, Liz, you get on the phone with her, she's really fun, whatever, but I'm actually really strategic. So I'm so excited you asked me this question. I don't get often asked. So when I started my blog, my website, I started it as a business. Like I said earlier, I wanted to make money. I wanted to elevate my status, hit the road full time, like, hey, did you know we could drive this thing? It has wheels, right? And so I started it very strategically. And of course, you listen to podcasts, you watch webinars, everyone says, email list, build your email list. So mama didn't raise no fool. I'm nothing if not an efficient chick. And so I started building the list. I created my first digital product. About 6 months later, I made $7,000 in the first 90 days. I was like, holy crap, I'm onto something. I've never made this much money.
What was your first digital product?
It was a book about the Black Tank, which is where the sewage goes. It was called Tales from the Black Tank, a collection of hilariously crappy RV stories. And let that be inspiration to the listeners. Like if you're listening to this and you're like, oh, I just can't sell anything, or I don't know if my idea is good enough. Like if I can sell a book about poop, knowing almost nothing, you can do anything. I believe in you.
That's gonna be that line's gonna be the selling feature of this podcast. I love it.
Yeah, like let's snippet that, make sure that makes it on Instagram stories. Yeah, so then I created this summit. I created assets for the site, and it was about 2 years in that I realized that, like you said, like with the avatar, I was like, well, I don't care. I mean, I care about these people because they're people, but I don't care to sell them stuff anymore. I want to sell this site. I know that I'm really smart. I want to do something else. I don't know what that something else is, but I know this isn't my forever home. Right. Mm-hmm. And so I hired a project manager, and I was making money with ads, affiliates. I was selling my book, a couple other products that I had built over the last couple of years. And she looked at me and she said, Liz, this is all great. And I know, you want to get all this together and build out some funnels, but all of this is other people's money. Like you're building affiliates companies, you're doing this, you're doing that. You need a real asset for your business, like your own digital course. So I said, okay, enough said. I created a course on RV maintenance, and I had 141 people on the wait list. And by cart close, I had made 141 sales. So I really knew when we talked about Avatar earlier, I really knew them.
What were you selling there? What was your price point for that? Which I think is very important.
It was a beta for $99. And again, that's knowing your person, right? These people don't even pay for electricity and don't know what a digital course is. I'm not going to come out the gate asking for $1,000, right?
Yeah, of
you
course.
Really got to know that avatar. So once that happened, I started selling the course again and again. And within a year, I had 400 students and I had sold the blog.
Very, very good. So this is just for another question for the audience that anybody that's running a similar business than you were at that moment. How do you separate yourself from being Liz, the face of this blog, the face of this business, to another individual that could continue running the business? How do you separate that? Because there's a lot of, I was a very strong believer 10 years ago, separate yourself from the business. Because I run a couple of companies, separate myself. Because if you ever want to exit strategy, you want to eliminate yourself as the brand. I've changed that. Now I'm trying to really focus the last 2 years on building myself as a brand. How do you, when you are selling something like that, separate yourself, Liz, separating from the brand to be able to sell it? Does it make any sense, that question?
Yeah, 100%. Y'all, we need to stop and pause and go rate this podcast because that's a great follow-up question. I'm so excited. Yeah, so that was a thing. So one of the things I didn't mention was when I started my business, when I, started the website, I didn't know what to name it. So of course, I go into Facebook groups, everyone says, oh, well, name it your name, lizwilcox.com. And, it can evolve with you. If you decide you don't want to talk about RVing later, it's still Liz Wilcox. You can talk about whatever. And so that's what I did. And it was about 10 months in that I realized that one day, like I'm building an asset, I'm not building my forever. Right. And so I was thinking, well, how can I make this more about the community than about Liz? Right. Yeah. And it was just perfect that it was, about RVing and camping, which is a very communal thing. So I actually changed the domain, changed the name, took Liz Wilcox out of it, put that on the back burner. And then it was called thevirtualcampground.com.
Okay.
And my welcome sequences, all my messaging changed to not be about, let's get Liz on the road. That's her dream. to like, this is your dream. This is what you want.
Okay.
The virtual campground itself is going to help you. And Liz is the camp host, right? So whatever your business is, obviously camp host won't fit for everyone. But you're basically the facilitator. And when I sold the business, that was my main objection was, oh my gosh, well, you're Liz Wilcox. Because by the time I sold it, I was starting to get recognized at campgrounds. I was starting to be asked to speak. I was really making a name for the virtual campground. They said, well, you're Liz. When you get on the screen, everybody loves you. Everybody loves your emails. We know who you are. How can we carry that on? And I had to, show them behind the scenes how I had been taking Liz out of the entire business for years. Even that course I created, I hired someone to create the content. I was in none of the videos.
Awesome. Yeah. Okay. That makes sense. Because when we were speaking prior, like my mindset was you were still front faced for this whole project. And then once you try to sell it, how do you just separate? Okay. So you answered that really, really good. Because a lot of people, they're building their brands around their social following, their pretty much their likeness. And then all of a sudden they try to sell that brand and they're stuck with that company, whether they're on a contract for a year or 2 years. There's a lot of moving parts there that really, really could either stop or really slow the process of selling the brand or the company.
Yeah, I will say when I signed the contract, I stayed on for 4 months to teach them, the behind the scenes and to slowly, pass the baton. I had a live show. They started co-hosting with me. And then I started just having a little segment and then I was gone. So it was, kind of like a slow wave of them coming in and me going back out to sea to try something new. Right. But it was very, very intentional. It was done. If you're thinking like, oh yeah, I could sell my blog or I'm done with this business, it might take you an entire year to kind of build yourself out of there. But really, I think it's for the benefit of the company because you want, if you have a blog or a website like that, community should be number one anyway. And that was something that I learned doing that. And it was, it lives on today. And now, they're 3 times as big. I was definitely the bottleneck, right?
I love that. That was my next question. Like, how is the company thriving today? So you said they're 3 times bigger now. Do you keep in contact? Do you follow them? Is it a curiosity still there?
Yeah, I do. And it's so funny. Sometimes I'll be scrolling on my Facebook and they're sharing old blog posts or old content and I see my face. And it's, it's fun and it's awesome, but it's also kind of cringy. When you're first starting out, for me, I would take a picture of anything. I mean, my first book was about poop and you can Google it. The cover is hilarious, but, and I see that and I'm like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I did that. But then I think, I can't believe somebody bought that and is still using it. Like, I guess it wasn't so bad after all, Liz. But yeah, the company is thriving. I actually had dinner at the time of this recording about a month ago with them. It's been really awesome to see something like, I feel like that made me a true entrepreneur. Like I built something and someone saw value in it enough to, pay me cash money, baby.
So let's jump into your second venture in the RV. Was it a very similar company? Was there a non-compete put in there? Like, how did that work for the second company?
Yeah, there was a non-compete. It actually ends in like 1 week. So I could start another RV blog if I wanted to. I won't. But there was a non-compete, which actually, so I went into email marketing, and with the non-compete, I couldn't give any of my marketing tips, emails to anyone in the RV industry at all. And so I had people, oh, Liz, you're doing this now. I want to hire you. That I actually had to turn down and say, I am only using these to build the virtual campground. Anything in the RV industry is, I can't help you or whatever. But actually, I loved that they did that. At first, I was like, oh my gosh, how am I going to get clients? Yeah. But I loved that because it forced me to really you mentioned it earlier, the word like hustle and grind and figure out how I was going to attract other people and really dig into what you see now on the screen of the branding and who is Liz Wilcox and what are her skills and, branching out into different industries was really, really awesome for me, actually.
So let's dive into that. Email marketing is something you're passionate about, something you do. You're currently still doing the email marketing, like educational aspect of it, right?
Oh yeah, I'm the fresh princess of email, baby.
Let's talk about that. Let's talk about that, because I think that's something that I still have a passion for. And I think a lot of younger entrepreneurs getting into starting their first business for the first time, or being self-employed for the first time, they really focus a lot of attention on social media, focus a lot of attention on maybe the customer service aspect, but they don't focus attention on the email lists, which is so massive for retention. Well, let's talk about that. Let's talk about the benefits of that. Let's talk about some strategies, some lessons in there. Like let's dive a little deeper into the whole email aspect.
Sure. So for me, like I mentioned earlier, I'm nothing if not efficient. And so when I kept hearing people say, oh, I wish I would have taken my email list more seriously, I would have done X times as much, right?
Yeah.
I was like, oh, well, I guess I better take my email list seriously. So like Jeff mentioned earlier, the value of my blog, sure, I had sponsors, I had ads, it was really the email list. When I sold my email list, or when I sold my website, a couple of years ago, the open rate, I had about 5,000 or 6,000 people on the list. It was 3 years old, and the open rate was nearly 50%.
Which is really high.
Yes, very high, in case you don't know. Even with crazy Apple iOS updates, that's still insanely high.
Yeah.
And how I was able to, 141 people on my email list, or on the wait list for a course, 100% course sales, was because I really, dug deep and leaned into that email. So email marketing, like I wouldn't be a proper email marketer if I didn't tell you own your own list. We don't own social media. Sometimes Facebook, Instagram, WhatsApp, it goes down. Who knows? TikTok is still a very new platform. Who knows what kind of regulations, what kind of changes they're going to be making to, I've even heard they're changing, their audio right now, and how they, push stuff out. That kind of stuff is constantly changing.
Yeah.
But when you have a podcast, when you're building, when you're first freelancing, whatever, if you can get people onto an email list, they are literally giving you permission to email them. And there's something about the inbox that is, for lack of a better term, intimate, right? Yeah. It's the same as your mailbox. You go out to your mailbox. Oh, that person doesn't live here. That's a bill. I'll open that when it's due. Oh my gosh, Jeff sent me something. I'm going to open this right away. I can't believe he sent me something. Yeah. If you do email right, it's the same way. Like, oh, that's a bill. That's spam. Oh my gosh, Liz Wilcox sent me something. I've got to see what's inside, right? And you
dive a little bit more into that. How could you separate yourself with that? Because people are being bombarded on a constant basis with emails. How do you separate yourself to make yourself stand out?
Yeah. So what I call it the email staircase. First, you've got a follower, right? You get them on your list, and then you turn them into a friend, and then you turn them into a customer. So with the followers, go back to the top of the hour when we were talking about, digging into that avatar. Who are they? What do they want? Where are they coming from? Why do they uniquely follow you? And this is what Jeff said, oh, I'm trying to lean more into that personal brand. Like, there are a million email marketers out there. I'm not, I didn't invent this stuff. But why would someone follow me? There's a unique perspective that I have, those unique experiences that make me stand out. And that's part of, what would make you stand out in the inbox.
Yeah.
But also, like, to turn them into a friend, you just got to do 3 things. You have to invest your time in them, right? Stay up to date in your industry. Like if you're a travel blogger, stay up to date on travel regulations. If you're an email marketer, I've got to know the latest on updates, right? My people have to know I'm investing time into the industry, right? I have to share in a relatable way. I talked about this earlier with my RV travel site. I was not talking about NSYNC. That was not relatable. Maybe I was bringing up the Grateful Dead, right? that would be relatable. And then you have to stay top of mind, be consistent. If you say you're going to email on Tuesdays, dang it, get your butt in the chair and email every Tuesday. That's going to show them you're investing, you're staying top of mind, and you're sharing in a relatable way. And that's how you stand out in the inbox.
I love that. I love that. So give a little couple tips on great ways to increase your email list. And obviously you're saying creating a product, creating different devices. Give me a couple ideas on how to build an email list.
Sure. There are lots of different ways to build your email list. But the main thing I want you to think about is just a couple do nots. I don't want you to have to stress about paid ads. If you're brand new and we all see it, especially if we're getting into, service provider or blogging or anything, we all get those ads and we see people, oh, well, everyone's building their list through paid ads. I never had any money like that. I've built all my email lists organically. Yeah. But basically, what I want you to know about list building is that it's going to be a slow growth, but it's essential to your business. Yeah. It is a money-making activity. And it's not just about getting to the highest number possible. It's about coming back to that avatar stuff we've been talking about. It's about finding the right person that cares about you and you care about, right? And so all you have to do is create a great freebie. Think about if you're graduating from Liz Wilcox University, what can I say that you've done, right? That you've accomplished. Now take it all the way back to that very first day in class. What is the thing I'm teaching you that very first day? That's going to be the freebie. Now think about what kind of format it has to be in, right? If I'm teaching people that barely have internet because they're out traveling around, I'm not exactly going to create a video course for them, right? Yeah. Maybe I create a checklist that's easily downloadable. It doesn't take a lot of internet, right? So think about your person. If your people are, single parents, maybe a video course, again, is not good, but, a little chunk size, a couple paragraphs a day in an email. Or if your person is a full-time business owner, a video course is a great idea because they are, their butt is in the chair 40 hours a week. They are taking things very seriously. They have the time to invest in that way, right? So think about who it's for and the best format for them. If you're having trouble, I would suggest just Googling what you think they are Googling. We all type into Google and it pops up those things, how to write an email, and then it would give you other suggestions. Think about it that way. Look at your competition. What are they doing and how can you do it better? Or how can you do it in a different way that stands out?
I love that. So you are a strong believer in focusing some attention on your competition because you hear, and there's different directions on it. I mean, you hear a lot of people talk about, and I talk about this all the time. I mean, there's a lot of moments where I really don't focus on my competition. I focus on the best quality I could offer for the business. My main company is a product service business where we provide boxing martial art equipment to gyms. We build, design it. So a lot of times I never really focus on my competition. I focus on offering the best price, best point, and just push this product as much as you can. But there are a lot of advantages of also looking at what your competition is doing to kind of be ahead of the curve or hit a different angle in the road away from them. Is there moments where you look at a business and be like, you know what, I'm not really going to focus on competition. I'm just really going to focus on what I could offer the best I could?
Yeah, I think it all boils down to what stage of business you're at and what your mindset is. If you are getting really down on yourself, focusing on the competition, be like a horse with blinders on. Just do what you can when you can, and put out what you can, right? But if you're at the beginning stages, you definitely want to look at, what's the norm? What do you like about that? And, in what ways do you want to disrupt that? Right. And so it is important at some stage in your business to look at what other people are doing. Because then you get a feel you get that gut check of, oh, I really love how they're doing that. How can I apply that to me? Or, oh my gosh, I never want to do that. Let's make sure we change our process so that doesn't happen to us, right? Yeah. But if you're in an unhealthy mindset, definitely, unfollow, stop Googling them. That's really going to behoove you.
I'm going to dive back into something with selling off everything, getting into the RV life that moves and travels. How was that? How long did you do that for?
Uh, 4 years. So, but I moved in, I can't remember the year, but we moved in, I think 2015 and moved out 2019. Maybe 2020. I don't know, maybe 5 years. It was a while. But my business started growing and, I needed a bigger debt. Now I've got this beautiful 27-inch awesomeness. I've got 2 keyboards. I got a real mouse, guys. It's awesome. So yeah, I did about 4 or 5 years and it was really fun. I have a daughter. She's so sick of the condo life. We live in a townhouse on the beach. She's like, this thing has no wheels. I'm so bored. All we do is go to the beach and swim. I'm like, you're living the life, kid.
Oh, I love that. I love that. So you have just one child?
Correct.
What does motherhood mean to you?
Well, I've got a sticky note. And so this is, I guess, motherhood to me. I'm an Enneagram 3. I'm very driven by success.
Yeah.
That's one of the things that, it's as much as I don't want to admit, like I care about being the best, doing my best. And so I have a sticky note here that says, I strive to be an example of what's possible, that's success. And so even in motherhood, as long as I'm showing her what's possible for her own life, that feels like the thing I should be doing.
I love it. I love it. I love it. Do you mind me diving back to when did you separate? Was that during the RV time or after?
Yeah, we had just moved out of the RV. It was like April or May 2020, so one of those pandemic divorces you keep hearing about. But my business started growing and it was just, it was a real strain. I'll admit I'm a workaholic. But for me, it's all about, I grew up really poor. I still support my mother financially. And once I got a taste for that type of success and being able to break the chains of poverty and break that generational cycle, like nothing was going to get in my way of doing that.
So that was obviously your upbringing was a trigger point for your success.
Yes, very much. I feel a lot of responsibility to be the one that, carries the family into a new way of living.
I love that. I love that. I love that. Where are you now in business wise? Like, where do you see yourself going over the next couple of years?
I'm so glad you asked. I'm so excited about the future. Last year was a really awesome year for my business. I created a membership in February 2021 called the Email Marketing Membership. And I was sitting at my desk. I had just signed $20,000 worth of new business. I was doing copywriting services at the time. I just signed $20,000. I was sitting down to write my newsletter. I was list building because I knew I didn't want to do services forever, right? That's not really sustainable. That's not what I see myself in 20 years doing. And I was thinking, okay, what am I going to write? And then I was also had this gut feeling of, gosh, Liz, you just signed all this away. But now that's taking away so much time from your kid. You're a single mom, you're going to have to get up at 3 a.m. so you can work before she wakes up. And I was like, like it should have felt so good coming from where I came from, that $20,000. And part of it did, that security part of me was like, okay, we're safe. We've got the rent paid, right? Yeah. Mom's taken care of, kids taken care of. But there was a part of me that was like, again, Liz, you're smarter than this. You've got to figure out another way. You can have it all. Dang it. Just figure it out. Like, just where does the puzzle piece go? And so I sat down and I said, okay, it's recurring revenue. I need recurring revenue. And so Liz, are you going to talk about recurring revenue or are you going to do something about it to create? Yeah. Are you going to create it? And so I wrote up a newsletter and I said, hey, I'm thinking of like your biggest problem is you hate to write newsletters every week. You have no idea what to talk about. I've got a bajillion ideas and I've got, at the time, 4 years of experience writing a weekly newsletter, never missing a day. Like I am nothing short of ideas.
Yeah.
Why don't you just give me $9 and every single week I'll give you a template? And I made I made like 30 sales that very first day. In the first 30 days, I made 100 sales. I just hit 1,000 people in a year's time. And so the future of Liz Wilcox and my business is I want the membership to be like the Netflix of digital marketing, where you can go in, you can get what you need, you can binge on the strategies, the trainings, everything. And it's just $9 a month, because that's where I came from. I came from a place where I didn't have anything but $9 to invest. And those are the types of people I want to help bring and break that chain, like I was talking about. And so that's the future of Liz Wilcox.
Do you sometimes question, or I'm sure a lot of people have probably told you, do you think you're devaluing yourself, all the value you're adding for $9 a month? And I'm sure you get this all the time.
Yeah, I get it all the time from my business coach, from everyone. And, especially other people that charge a lot, they'll say, oh, well, you're giving away so much, and how can anyone take it seriously? And I really challenge that way of thinking. I know that I'm worth a lot more. I know this membership is worth, hell, I would say $1,000 a month. Some people would pay $1,000 a month for this. I do believe that. But for me, I'm valuing the people that need it the most, the people that were in my position. When I started my business, I didn't even have internet on my phone. I had to drive to the library to launch my very first product because I had nothing. I was living in a box on wheels. Yeah. I've been hungry. I've been homeless. I've struggled. Just the other day, I spent $200 on groceries, and I was stressing, and I had to laugh at myself and say, like, Liz, you actually have the money. Like, don't worry. And I've been in all of those situations, and I think about those moments where I had to choose between, the groceries and buying a course to build my business. I had to choose between keeping my mother on 8 Mile in Detroit with no refrigerator, or building my business. And that is a disgusting feeling. I hate that feeling. I never want anyone to purchase something for me and to have that, well, if I buy this, which I know I need, I believe in myself so much, I know I need this, but my so-and-so, my whatever needs to just as strongly. That's why I charge it. Now I'm getting upset. But it means so much to me to be able to help people.
I mean, the passion is obviously, the passion and honesty is obviously there. So which is pretty amazing. Have you ever, and I'm just doing this just to inspire the conversation here, but have you ever even thought of doing different tiers?
Because I've thought about that. I think for me, something that I might be going towards, because now I have retired my copywriting services. I set myself up with my bookkeeper all of 2021. I was able to save an entire year's salary for myself so that I don't have to stress about, about paying the bills, getting my mom, whatever, right? And I worked really, really hard on that. And so for me now, it's about designing, what the best thing is. And I think, and creating more content, like more social media. I've gotten email down. I know what I'm doing. So now it's, being able to play around with social media and grow in that aspect as well. And so I'm thinking there might be tiers where, you can get more access to me, or even, nowadays, especially with the pandemic, it's way more normal for, like Patreon and things like that, where people just pay for the creator. So I think about maybe announcing that, but that'll be maybe later this year. I also do an annual sale where, you can pay $108 for the entire year. That goes off really, really well.
Yeah. I mean, it's still a very, affordable year cost, right? I have a couple other questions. These are just things are just randomly going through my head. Let's talk about Fresh Prince. When did you fall in love with Fresh Prince and Seinfeld? Let's talk about your TV journeys and
yeah, so fun. So with the Fresh Prince and Will Smith, I've always been a huge admirer of Will Smith and what he was able to do. And one of the things I really, really admire about him is he always stayed true to himself. You know, Will Smith started off as a rapper. He's won the first rap Grammy ever. And a lot of people, I'm learning, don't actually know that.
Yeah.
And, you know, but in regards to the hip hop culture industry, he's been looked at as not a real rapper, someone who's very corny, a sellout. Yeah. But if you know a lot about Will Smith, he talks about, well, I never cussed in my rhymes because my grandma found my rhyme book and I had curse words in it. And she said, an intelligent person doesn't need to use these words to get their point across. And he said, well, I'm not going to, if I have to choose between disappointing my Mima and the masses, I'm not going to disappoint my grandmother. Yeah. And so to me, when I heard that a long time ago, like in my 20s, and I was like, wow, to be so firm in who you love and what you stand for, to like be called whack and corny and rejected by the very thing that you were a part of from day one. Like that is so strong. That value set is like really remarkable. And so that's what I love about Will Smith. And then with the Fresh Prince, that character specifically, if you watch the first episode, he comes in, they're having a party and he's just, he's his West Philly self. And, these are all these politicians and, local lawmakers. And he's like, sup, whatever. He's just, again, being himself. But as the show progresses, you can see while being himself, he's open to the lessons that people are presenting him. And he's able to evolve, the character evolves with those lessons while still having that core value system. And that's something that I try to exemplify in my own life and now in my business.
I love it. That's a lot of detail. I love that.
I'm a well thought out chick. I really am. Don't let the backwards cap fool you. I've got a brain in there.
Last question. If something were to happen to you today, how would you want to be remembered, described by your loved ones?
I would like to be remembered. This is so good.
The email queen.
Yeah, the Fresh Princess, just someone that has overcome their circumstances, someone that didn't give up no matter what. Another little story, growing up, I was actually mute until age 7. Now you can't get me to shut up. This might be a long episode. But really just, again, that definition of success, striving to be an example of what's possible, just always doing the thing that people didn't even think could be done, going above and beyond. I think that's how I'd like to be remembered. And hilarious. If somebody doesn't think I'm funny, that would really hurt me at my funeral.
I'm gonna say one thing is, and I admire just by our short conversation here, is you haven't let your circumstances define your future. And I think a lot of people do allow their circumstances to define their future, and they become what society puts you in, almost a shell of being a victim. And once you're put in that shell of being a victim and you accept it, it's hard to get out of. So I admire from our short conversation, obviously you didn't allow that to happen to you, and you're obviously succeeding. And I think you're just just by our short conversation, I've been an entrepreneur for 26 years. I'm 45. So you're just starting to take off. And I love how you said you saved for the year and all that's like, I do a lot of other stuff like real estate stuff, and I'm a strong believer in everything you do. You try to save as much as you can. You save as much as you can, and then I use that for investments. And you're on the right path. I love what you're doing. I love your mindset. I love how you're trying to help people, because I do believe in almost that form of karma where it's all going to come back in tenfold to you. So continue your path, keep doing what you're doing. I love to continue this relationship going forward, and anything you need, just reach out. And anything you want to leave your audience with today?
If I had to leave anything, I think it would be this. These are my two rules for life. I always ask myself, like, how can I make this easy? And then a follow-up question is, how can I make this fun? So with whatever you do, ask yourself those questions if you're struggling, and you'll have the answer.
I love it. How can our audience get a hold of you, reach you, follow you?
Yeah, of course. I'm an email marketer. I'd love for you to join my email list. If you want examples of how to get it done, you can just go to lizwilcox.com. In the top right-hand corner, there's a hot pink button. It says free email swipes. You're going to get a bunch of stuff I won't spiel off, but I promise you it'll be really good. And I'd love to get to know you and help you with your email as well.
Love it. Love it. Love it. This is awesome. I appreciate it. Appreciate your time today. And we will continue this conversation, I'm sure.
Yeah. Thank you so much.